Alright, let me just see if we can get this in focus. That should work. And you're basketball fans, so we'll get you some basketball things to look at. It's the rise of the unleashing of the long arm monster meter at 5, guys. 5 out of 5. So I couldn't stay away. I'm supposed to be making my video playground, which is what this is, for my cooking classes for my work, and I couldn't stay away because of the last 2 Raptors games. I really take a lot of notes in terms of the lineups that they run, and like I'm a geek about it. And the last 2 games, because we have most of our lineup back other than Utah and Svi, we were able to run our full kind of rotations. And instead of running the normal rotations we've run all year, the last 2 games we have whipped out. It's the unleashing of the long arm monsters. So it was a great game. I want to take a look at the San Antonio game to show you kind of how the rotations went. And it was actually not necessarily deliberate that we wound up using these long arm monster lineups. But this video is going to be all about taking a look at the clips of how we got to that point in the game and why we're going to see more and more of it down the road. And it might even determine a lot of the direction that the Raptors take. So in terms of stats from the other night, our starters and our bench looked really great. You can pause the video at any time to take a look at these stats. In terms of San Antonio, the impressive players were definitely Pirtle, definitely Josh Primo, homegrown Canadian kid, and who, like Scotty Barnes, a lot of people thought was taken too high. Scotty Barnes and Franz Wagner and Josh Primo all proving a lot of people wrong this year. And then the last one is their 2nd round draft pick, San Antonio, with their farm system and with their scouting department, didn't fail again. It looks like Joe Wieskamp out of Iowa is really turning my head. I've seen him play a couple games this year, and this was the most minutes I've seen him play. It was against the Raptors. Really impressive. Who hates a shooter with a motor? Anyhow, let's get to what happened in the game, and then I'll come back and chat with you a little bit more here in my new little mantle for displaying this stuff. Cheers, and guys, give me a thumbs up, give me a like and a subscribe if you're a fan of the new layout. This is what I've been trying to learn how to do and design for, again, my cooking business. So I hope you enjoy it in the basketball form as well. Cheers. Let's run the clip. So the first thing I want to run is this non-basketball play by Josh Primo. The reason I want to put it in here is because this is one nimble guy. Like, I would have been on my ass for this. It's ridiculous. Anyway, let's get to the game. Guys, before we start, do not forget to vote.
Okay, time to vote.
Shall we vote?
Let's vote.
I think I will vote.
Every vote counts.
We're not gonna fight, we're gonna vote.
Let's vote.
Let's vote, and then we'll fight.
We have 3 legitimate All-Stars, guys. The instructions are here. Vote. Let's get our ring-bearing All-Stars on the team, and get me breakfast with Jack, please. So there is a reason we got to level 5 long arm monsters, and it has to do with foul trouble for P. We did not game plan for this. And you can be sure P did not like the calls, but it was almost as if Coach Pop had schemed for this, because look how set his players' feet are. They're expecting this drive. And Pirtle went off, by the way. He went just nuts in the first quarter. So Nurse made a move to manage his rotation, and instead of taking P out with 2 fouls, he first took out Barnes and brought in Kem Birch.
Kem Birch is going to check in, and Scotty Barnes will leave.
The second combination had not much to report. A lot of sloppy basketball, but this was a great play by Gary Trent Jr. He got the call wrong here. He's totally in position.
Mouth-watering chicken of the North.
But they call it the other way. It's unfortunate. Jakob gets the rebound. Pirtle had a monster night. Gotta love him. And the game remained super sloppy until the defense turns to offense as usual, and P finds Gary Trent Jr. with a rhythm 3 that he really steps into perfectly. Our backcourt was crazy. Fred VanVleet and GT Jr. were just on fire in the first half. On the very next whistle, around 7 minutes, we already get our second rotation with Barnes coming back in. We still got 3 long arm monsters, but nothing much happened until Freddie lobs one up, and then we get Maddie.
OG flies in.
OG has a great putback. He struggled shooting, but his D was great tonight. The Raps have their whole starting lineup back, so Freddie was huge with Gary Trent Jr. They didn't need everybody. We had depth. It just looked great. And I mean, these takes by Freddie are just getting more and more consistent. And they give him space. He was knocking stuff down. For San Antonio, it was all Pirtle, who had a big night. Kem tried to do his best with him, but Pirtle just is that good a player. As always, Kem was good. His stuff just doesn't show up on the stat sheets. So the next rotation saw Chris Boucher come in for OG so that the Raptors could keep their length. 3 long guys on the court at all times. Boucher was great. He was one of the best players on the court to my eye just to watch the game, but he didn't show up in the stats. Watch this pass by Scotty. Leads to shots for Kem Birch and 2 chances here. Great pass. So yeah, like ultimately it came down to pick and rolls and our backcourt making good defensive plays that led to offense and some great shooting by GT Jr. and Fred VanVleet. Like, they were both on fire on both ends of the court, but so was the entire starting rotation and the first 4 guys off the bench. They were fantastic. It's amazing what a healthy lineup can do. And this is where I think the media gets too caught up in the idea that it's 5 long arm guys. We have 2 of the best turnover causing guards in the league in Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet. Here's a great hedge. The length is used really well. We're forcing the ball to the open shooter over the hedge, which is what comes. Dangerous pass. Pirtle, of course, gets the rebound, but we get a turnover in the lane. And then, again, very next play, same thing. Boucher's length, he gets down low. His foot speed's amazing. And this is what the Raptors have, is not just long arm monsters all the time, but also these pesky small ball hound guards. Before we move on from that, I gotta say, stretch bigs aren't just about putting up threes and stretching the floor that way by making the big come out from under the basket. They're also about running the floor to create mismatches, because when your big is racing down the court like a deer into the gut of a backpedaling guard, it causes mismatches. And their big gets winded if they're traditional. That's why a guy like Chris Boucher is super valuable to us as a stretch big, even if his 3-point shot went missing for the beginning of the season. I haven't understood the complaints about Chris Boucher. Check out the video about it if you want. That brings me to the idea of a lot of people think we need a traditional 7-footer. I've made videos on Bagley and Turner, both players that I am intrigued by. I'm gonna make a video on Pirtle. If you'd like to see that video, hit the notification bell and you'll see it when I make it. The next 2 videos that I'm gonna make also have to do with stuff I've been talking about. The first one has to do with my statement that I've been making all year that the Raptors are engaging and have been using some measure of load management all season in order to give experience and reps and minutes to the end of their bench, so that the younger guys get more minutes by the time they get there. And Nick Nurse likes to see things and try out different combinations. But it's really about confidence all the way down your bench, so that when you get to the playoffs and injuries do happen that you can't play through, you have guys ready to go. Next man up, everybody eats, share the rock, right? The last video that I'm going to make also has to do with, we're in striking distance. We're back to 500. So is it better for a young team with Freddie leading all these kids? Is it better to tank and, you know, not go to the playoffs? Or is it better to get in there and get spanked by, you know, an upper team, but maybe upset them? So when we left, we were at 3 out of 5. And that's a normal way to run your team. 3 out of 5 long arm monsters. That's most teams. Like, that's why we're undersized at the center. At this point in the game, we shift. So suddenly, take a look. At the end of the first quarter, Precious Achiuwa comes on with OG for Gary Trent Jr. and Kem, giving 1, 2, 3, 4 bigs and not Banton, which is interesting. And as we upgrade this length, it pays immediate dividends at both ends of the court.
Pass picked off by Anunoby.
And when you have 4 stretch bigs on the court, there's mismatches.
Top, and a foul on Forbes. And
that's right, folks. Our city of Toronto is the spot for stretch bigs. Precious made an immediate impact on the court and really stretched the floor. He got to the line a ton. He's starting to show us why he's got that name. So I'm going to stop it there with the long arm monster meter. A very scary 4 out of 5. If you want to continue this journey with me and see what happens when we get to 5 out of 5 and we actually see the long arm monster lineup in all its glory, then join me for the next half of this video, which I'll make following this one. If you want to see any of the other 3 videos that I previously mentioned, make sure you hit the notification bell. Remember guys, it's all about the Larrys. Kawhi, you should have stuck around and been one of the long arm monsters, buddy.
I don't even know where you're sitting at.
Yeah, cause I'm freaking up on the mantle. That's bullshit, Kawhi. Your laugh is stupid.
This is Chef's Kiss approved. Mwah!